The Dauntless. Going directly to the manufacturer and getting the list of all customers that made purchases of the compound was the easy part, which then revealed the hard part. The list was nearly 5,000 women long, and that was just in the last 2 weeks. Apparently the product had been selling well, and many chemicals that the humans made use of were popular products. In that light, it was a minor miracle that half of Centris wasn't rubble at this point. She turned back to glare at Specialist Barnabas. The man was useless. He wasn't even facing the receptionist who had gotten the information and was looking outside. Is this how he investigates? She had to check multiple times that he was still there and hadn't just faded into nothingness or popped out of existence like a bad dream. There's a slight humming sound and she looks at him sharply. Act casual. I beg your pardon? She asks him, and he does not move. I said, act casual, we're being watched, he states, and she resists sighing in exasperation. The secretary seems to be taking him seriously if her sudden nervous aura is any indication, but for pity's sake. Yes, it's called security cameras. There in each corner of the room. Not that? He answers before taking in a deep and somewhat loud breath. I've spotted the same woman passing in front of the building 8 times now. That is cause for concern. Once or twice is explainable by someone being lost or perhaps exercising in public. But 8 times? You were watching for trouble? I make you uncomfortable and you're better suited to dealing with things officially. So I stepped out of your way and took watch. He answers. We have an Alfar acting suspicious. Tanned skin, long pale hair with a silver sheen, white shawl with armored pauldrons overtop some kind of armored bodysuit, green and white. He states, and she follows his gaze. He does not see the woman. If she holds true to her patterns, she'll be coming around the corner any minute now. It takes a few moments, enough that she almost scolds him for the false alarm, and then the woman in question shows up. The description is spot on. She watches as the woman passes by, clearly looking into the building and then passes by. She's not as subtle as she thinks she is, Barnabas notes. This was supposed to be the easy part, Linda mutters to herself, and he holds up his communicator. I took a few pictures of her after the 4th time she showed up, he says, and she nods. Send them to mine. I'll run them through an algorithm and we'll hopefully get her name out of it. She says, and he fiddles with his device for a few moments as she grabs the data chit the receptionist was kind enough to give them and starts moving. She looks back to see that he's keeping pace, just 2 steps behind in fact, but is as silent as he is scentless and axiomless. Some small part of her wonders if this is what it's like for lesser and lower things to be stalked like prey. For simple beasts to know that their senses are failing them and they're a single decision away from death. Or perhaps not, lesser beings are not known for their awareness. So she was merely pacing about sight. I thought her route was longer. He notes and she senses outwards with axiom. The woman is easily found and she's very clearly focused on them. But whatever her reason, it's irrelevant in the here and now of the fact she's doing it. Clearly not. She answers the living void next to her. Keep cool. Just pretend we're a pair of trets with official business. Kinda hard when you're a big shock of nothing to the axiom, she says as she walks up to her vehicle. With this done, they have enough to start processing, and he'll have all the excuse needed to leave and not come back until the next day. I'm actively repressing my presence to not draw attention to myself. He answers, opening the passenger side door and slipping in. And the waxy substance covering your entire body? She asks him, and he smirks. Skin condition, very embarrassing. Please drop the subject. He replies before looking pointedly to the vehicle parked in front of them. She's following us. If you're so concerned, then why haven't you done anything? She asks, feeling outwards and finding the woman with ease. She's actively suppressing her presence and is hard to keep track of. Following people over a short period of time isn't illegal, just creepy. I need a clear indication of hostility or malice to actually do more than observe and take note. He answers, and yes, it's a reasonable and rational code of conduct, minimizing potential damage and giving the benefit of the doubt. That it came from him makes her want to deny it, however. She pulls on the axiom to push back on the exhaustion creeping in. She needs a meal, a nap, and a few hours to herself to clear her head. Something's up, Barnabas states before she even activates the vehicle. She sighs in frustration. What? What is above us? Not literally up. I mean, something is wrong. Something doesn't fit. There's a pattern I'm not consciously able to see, but some part of me can. I need more details, she says. Goosebumps on the back of my neck, a sinking feeling in my gut, an inexplicable sensation of dread and doom, a general feeling of danger. I can't narrow it further. So you think something is about to go wrong, but you can't specify. How very useful. She notes as she starts up the vehicle and he shifts. She looks at him to see him fidgeting, grabbing onto the seat and the door as if things are about to explode. He grows increasingly agitated, looking around as if under direct threat even as they lift off the spire. Calm down. But, he replies, even if we're in danger, a pair of supposed threats can slip away from almost anything. If the man is visibly panicking, it's another matter entirely. You think there's danger? Stop drawing attention to yourself and potentially bringing normal people into the line of fire, she tells him, and he goes still, instantly getting control of himself and setting himself into a singular position, one prime to a blast of movement. There's only a wavering in the car's axiom field to warn them before the front of the vehicle shreds itself just before a turn. In a single moment, the world dissolves into a blur of movement as Barnabas crudely pulls in an enormous amount of axiom and focuses it into something in his blood that spreads it instantly into his nerves and muscles. The sheer roiling emotions around him are screaming of danger and suggesting to flee, to fight, to plan, to hide, to do thousands of different things at once, but above all else, there is a single overriding command: move! He pulls her safely out of her seat as he opens the door, leaps out the side of the car, and then pulls her into an embrace even as they're careening through the air. His aim is good, and they splash down into an ornamental pool, terrifying the harmless fish and causing an enormous splash. He hits the bottom, but the water has bled off so much momentum that he merely pushes off it, and they surface gasping for breath. He pushes her out of the water and then climbs up himself just as her car slams into the side of a building that's thankfully reinforced enough that it doesn't cause anything more than some surface damage and gives everyone enough time to scatter before the ruined hulk can land. "Are you all right?" he asks her, and she turns. His instincts are aligning among protection and retaliation. Running isn't even on the list as she can see his eyes dart around for threats as his aura bays for blood and vengeance. There is a focus now, centered on her with a will to protect and preserve. It's nearly as horrifying as the sheer hunger for violence boiling off of him. They both barely dodge death, and he's furious about the attack. That's an apex, all right. That is a completely apex reaction. She can't help but notice that the layer of pheromone blocker has been stripped away by the sheer force of the water, and his face is pale even as his eyes go bloodshot. He takes a few deep breaths, and his entire presence seems to go from hyper-focus to a chaotic storm, and the axiom bleeds away, concealing it. "We need to get to cover," he tells her, and she nods dumbly, any thought of exhaustion on the long day fading as they rush into the entrance of a building to conceal themselves somewhat from attack. "Did you call for help? Already?" When did he find time to do that? It's been 10 seconds at most since her car was completely ruined. "Yay, I have an emergency button on my communicator. I held it down for a few seconds. We have reinforcements inbound." he says as he keeps a watch out. Then he guides her a little deeper into the natural shadows of the entrance and makes himself a barrier between the outside world and her. "What are you doing?" "You may be an officer of the council, but I'm a soldier of the undaunted. My duty is to protect, with my life if needs be. Let me do my job." "But I've got the body armor. I've got the training." He answers her protest even as he looks out. He scans and rescans the area. Linda sighs before closing her eyes and sensing hard there is sheer panic and confusion in the area. What pain there is seems mostly concentrated on sprained ankles or on those who trip to evacuate in a hurry. She goes deeper. The marking on Barnabas's shoulder grabs at her attention, but she moves past it. A great deal of the axiom flow from her car has bled away, and it's being reduced to inert metal and plastics. "I didn't sense the bomb," she realizes. "Pardon?" he asks, turning to look her in the eyes. His eyebrow is up. "The bomb used no axiom at all," she says, and the other goes up to join it for a moment before furrowing hard. "We'll need to run tests on it, but if the bomb wasn't axiom-based, it may very well have been more plastic explosives, which means our bomber is aware of our investigation and just tried to kill us," he says before turning away to start his vigil again. "I need to call my... Her vision wavers and she pulls at the surrounding axiom to bolster herself. Her communicator slips from her fingers and she staggers for a moment before righting herself. "You're beyond exhausted. We need to get you to safety so you can get some rest." "No," she answers, pulling so hard at the surrounding axiom that it actually kicks up a wind. She fortifies herself without shifting her body. She's overdue for rest and a meal, and the axiom just isn't enough. It needs something to work with, or far more axiom than is acceptable to pull on. Either pull in enough or not any at all. You're wasting your time and energy otherwise. He scolds her. "Don't tell me how to use axiom. You lived your life without it." "I may not have lived with axiom, but I know a thing or 50 about pushing too hard. Either way, it needs commitment. Half-assing it will just get you hurt. Do it or not, don't go halfway." "What?" "Do or do not, there is no try," he says before sighing. "Don't tell anyone that I used that quote, by the way. If you're just trying to confuse and exasperate me, then you're succeeding with aplomb." I'll take it. Our ride's here," he says even as an armored vehicle descends from above. "Come on, medics. Food and sleep await." "You're tired?" "Adrenaline crash." "What?" "My body makes natural combat drugs, but when they wear off, there's a huge blast of exhaustion," he answers before stepping out and waving down the APC. It lands mere meters away and opens up. Several soldiers jump out and he offers a salute. "Good to see you, Commander. I hope you don't mind if Officer Score and myself have a sit-down behind some nice safe armor." "Get inside, soldier," the commanding officer tells him, and he gratefully walks into the APC before turning around. "Come on, officer. I know you don't like us, but we're on your side. Please." Specialist Barnabas says, holding out his hand to her, and she just stares at him.